this video right here is perfect for you. I've had this video saved or so. It popped up on my feed and literally says, "What happened to looter shooters?" Mr. Dubstep, you should know about this, right? You should know about this topic very well. You used to be a looter shooter person, right?
Genre of games that saw their rise in popularity from the late 2000s to the late 2010s. Games like Borderlands, Destiny, The Division, Warframe, just to name a few. While these franchises are still ongoing today, some are certainly doing better than others. In the mix of all this success though, there were plenty, and I mean plenty, of failures. Outriders, Marvel Avengers, Babylon's Fall, and of course the most high profile flop of them all, Anthem. Many games that were seen as nothing more than trend chasing by large studios, a trend we are still seeing today, just with other game genres. So in today's video, I want to take a stroll down memory lane and analyze both the success and failures of looter shooters. What worked, what didn't, and more importantly, why studios decided
Well, I'll tell you one thing or so why Destiny failed, in my personal opinion.
to stop making them. And real quick, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more,
I never played Outriders. I've heard of Outriders, but I've never played it. Marvel Avengers disappoints me so much. There was a lot of things wrong about that game in general.
more like it, the best way to do that is subscribe.
I think personally, out of all, I don't know, maybe that's just my personal opinion because I played it or so, but I think out of all of them here, well, not counting Warframe because Warframe is free to play, I think The Division was probably the better looter shooter style game compared to the rest. But like I said, I haven't really played Outriders or Marvel's Avengers or anything like that, but I did play the other ones in this list.
Without further ado, let's get into it. To start, we need to go all the way back to 2007 with a game that I never actually heard of called Hellgate London. By all accounts, this is credited with being the first real looter shooter. It combined first and third person shooting elements while also having RPG style loot drops. This was developed by Flagship Studios, a studio founded by ex-Diablo developers. You can certainly see the similarities with things like randomized weapons, armor, as well as having character classes. Now, Hellgate London was not super popular, and its critic scores at the time reflected that, being overall mixed. Only about a year after its release, Flagship Studios would shut down, and Bandai Namco would provide support for the game until February of 2009. Despite all of this, Hellgate London is still considered by many to be the first looter shooter, and even promoted itself as what we would consider now as a game as a service or live service title. Fast forward to 2009, we see the release of Borderlands, a first-person shooter RPG developed by Gearbox Software, published by 2K Games.
But you guys said that Borderlands 1 was an actual good looter shooter game?
The genre looter shooter wasn't really a thing up until this point, and it wasn't until Borderlands release that it would be widely adopted. Similar in the way that games sort of like Dark Souls are labeled as Souls-likes, or Metroidvanias are called as such because of Metroid and Castlevania, genres that didn't exist before but now had a name due to a previous game's success and influence. The original Borderlands was lauded at release for combining fast-paced first-person shooting with the looting and progression systems of other RPGs, a gameplay loop we would see continued in subsequent releases from both Borderlands and other franchises. Then in 2012 came Borderlands 2, which was met with almost universal praise. Borderlands 2 took all the good from the original, amped it up to 11, while also tweaking some gameplay systems such as the procedural generation for its weapons, for example. If the first Borderlands was the foundation, then the second took all of that and ran with it. As many of you already know, the Borderlands franchise is still massive today, spawning multiple sequels and spin-offs in the years to follow the original's release. After the success of Borderlands, we would start seeing other developers releasing similar games with their own twist. Games that would become extremely popular, but for many different reasons. In early 2013, Warframe would officially release, developed and published by Digital Extremes, who previously released Dark Sector, but more famously helped co-create the Unreal series back in the day. Warframe was released as completely free to play, meaning you could experience all the content in the game without ever needing to spend a dime, something that still holds true today. Now, because
I'd be curious to see who the original story writer was for Borderlands 2, if he's still on the same team. If not, then it probably explains so much, to be honest.
Compensate for this, Warframe, at least in terms of looter shooters, was the first one to heavily rely upon microtransactions to keep the game running. Now, it sounds worse than it actually is, even though at first it was pretty bad, but most, if not all, the microtransactions in the game are relegated to being purely cosmetic or strictly pay for convenience. Warframe even allows player trading for its premium currency, so you could still get cosmetics for totally free. Interestingly enough, Warframe launched to very little buzz and mostly mixed to
Borderlands 2 is so good. I don't want to hear Dark talk about Lords of the Mid when he's 100% a soulless game.
for totally free. Interestingly enough, Warframe launched to very little buzz and mostly mixed to positive reviews. Now, I say interestingly because Warframe is insanely popular today across all
It's like
platforms,
very
including
popular.
console,
It's
PC,
very
and even
good,
having a
apparently.
mobile version in beta for both iOS and Android. So while it started off pretty slow, things have really only gone up for Digital Extremes, and with the insane success of Warframe, sees Digital Extremes developing another game, Soulframe. Warframe nowadays has truly become one of the most consumer-friendly
sense.
live service game models, at least in my opinion. The fact that you can play over 10 years of content for absolutely free, on top of that old content receiving updates to make it better, is truly amazing, especially in today's gaming
Wow, they
landscape.
actually
Now,
updated
around
the
the
old
same time that
content?
Warframe
That's pretty
released,
crazy.
another looter shooter would as well. While Warframe started off very slow and was from a pretty under-the-radar developer, the next one was quite the opposite. In 2014, we would get Destiny, a looter shooter developed
Ah, Destiny 1, man. The amount of times I sunk hours into this game, it was something, to be honest. I made a lot of good friends back then too as well. Good times. Good times. Good times.
by Bungie, who were of course most well known for the creation of Halo. The biggest departure for Destiny from other looters at the time was the introduction of MMO elements. Although marketing itself as a shared world shooter and never truly adopting the MMO tag until much later, the elements here are undeniable. Things like clans, a shared hub, strikes, and raids, perhaps the thing Destiny is most well known for, well, you know, besides deleting paid content from their game.
Yeah,
Love it or hate it,
that
and
as
I
well.
know many hate it, Destiny was truly the stepping stone for the live service looter shooter. For all of its flaws, and believe me, there are
But its
too many
story
to
writing is
count,
not
in
super
terms of
great,
looter
though.
shooters, Destiny truly caused a genre surge. For years to follow, we started seeing games being announced and touted as the Destiny killer by news outlets, in the same way that we would see games being dubbed the COD killer or the Halo killer.
Oh,
That's how
yeah.
popular and influential Destiny had become, and believe me, many games would take a swing at the top with varying levels of success. Undoubtedly, one of the closest examples of a Destiny killer we would see at this time wouldn't come until 2016 when Ubisoft released The Division.
Dude, The Division was such a fun game, dude. I really liked The Division. I really did.
Place in a post-apocalyptic New York, The Division sought to capture something many other looters hadn't,
It was
and that
really
was realism,
fun.
at least to a degree. The setting shift and just the sheer amount of marketing for The Division made it an incredible commercial success, even surpassing Destiny's record for the highest sales of a new intellectual property. While selling tons of copies, The Division marked a very early sign of genre fatigue. While many lauded the gameplay and the inclusion of things like the Dark Zone certainly set it apart, it was becoming clear that the general gameplay loop of a looter shooter was essentially solved, but that wouldn't
Well, yeah, it was getting fatigued because everybody was doing it. It's the same thing what happened when Fortnite, came out. Everybody started doing it. It's just a
stop
thing
more
that
and more
comes
developers
by.
from taking a stab at it. From 2017 to 2019, we would not only see the release of Destiny 2, but also The Division 2 and
Damn, freaking Destiny 2 came out in 2017? Damn, that's quite a bit or so, to be honest. I don't really remember what games came out in 2017. What was I even playing during 2017?
Borderlands 3. While Borderlands 3 was seen by many as a step back for the franchise, Destiny 2 and The Division 2 were received rather well, or at least The Division was. Destiny 2's launch and subsequent first year of content were pretty not great, and it wouldn't be until the release
Yeah.
of the Forsaken expansion when things would really take off. Now, to be clear, both Destiny 2 and The Division 2 are successful games and have maintained healthy player numbers for almost 10 years, but the future outlooks for each game couldn't be more different. In the case of Destiny 2, things have literally never been worse. All starting in the summer of 2024 when Bungie would lay off 17% of its staff following the wildly successful Final Shape expansion. Things from this point on never truly recovered, with player numbers dropping further and further with no clear end in sight. The Division 2, on the other hand, has been getting updates like usual, and even just recently got a visual overhaul in conjunction with a 10th anniversary update. But more importantly, there is
This game is getting updated? That's a shocker, and that's the first thing that I learned from Ubisoft updating this game.
a light at the end of the tunnel for The Division. We know a Division 3 is in development. It's been confirmed multiple times by Ubisoft themselves. We just don't have any sort of timetable as to when that could release. There is so much more I could say specifically about Destiny 2, so if that's something you would be interested in, leave a comment down below as I'm considering making a dedicated Destiny 2 video. But moving on, we can't talk about 2019 without talking about Anthem.
Wait, this shit came out in 2019? Man, dude, I really forgot when this game came out, dude. Man, Anthem sure was promising, to be honest. Might have to jump on Division 2 when it goes on sale. I bought it on sale, actually. I bought it on sale for like, I think it was like $10 or something like that for the what was it? the Ultimate Edition, Gold Edition. I don't fucking know. They have so many different editions. It's the one with the fucking with the yearly pass thing that has all the DLC in it.
By BioWare and published by EA, this was supposed to be the next big thing, the Destiny killer even. However, with its release, it was very quickly diagnosed as neither of those things. While looking visually stunning, especially at the time, and having still to this day some of the best feeling flying mechanics in a video game, at least in my opinion, the biggest problem that plagued Anthem was that it was just boring, with missions that were extremely repetitive and no real endgame for players to grind.
The reason why this game failed so hard, so I don't know if he talks about it in the video, but I'm gonna tell you guys right now. So apparently when they made the trailer for this game, right, the cinematic trailer, right, the basically like the game that, you know, what do you guys think basically? So people were pretty excited about the game in general, right? The developers never really made the game. They kind of basically like said, oh, you guys like this? I guess we'll be like making it or something. My curiosity is, let me see here. When did the first Anthem trailer came out? Yeah, 2017, right on E3 2017, and then this game came out 3 years afterwards in 2019. So yeah, so basically they really had nothing. They kind of basically, they had something, but it wasn't really, you know, it was still nothing at the end of the day. So for those who didn't know, basically they're like, oh, the people like this kind of, they like this shit, I guess we're gonna make it, I guess. So, and that's basically how the story of this game became to be. That's why the story wasn't really that great. That's why it was boring most of the time. A lot of people did say like the flying is actually really good in this game. I've never played it because the only reason why I never even played it, during the time or so when they had a open beta for this game, it bricked PS4s back then. If you guys remember, it fucking bricked PS4s. I didn't play it. Thank God I didn't play it, because holy shit, dude, I would be pissed off if my PS4 bricked or so from this game. That's all I gotta say.
Towards. Something cited many times by fans and critics alike was the fact that Anthem had many of the same problems that Destiny had. However, it came out 5 years after the original and 2 years after the sequel, so these problems still persisting in a game that BioWare was developing for almost 7 years was unacceptable to many. BioWare was preparing to support Anthem for many years, even after its shaky launch, but
oh yeah, I remember there was supposed to be like a an overhaul with the first DLC, but it got completely abandoned and scrapped completely. Yeah, I remember that. It was supposed to be Anthem like 2.0 basically, to overhaul a lot of the stuff that was wrong with it, of its initial launch and everything. And that just kind of like fell through the floor, to be honest.
ultimately that would not happen, and Anthem servers finally shut down in January of this year, marking it as one of the biggest high-profile flops in the looter shooter market, a stain that BioWare still hasn't been able to shake to this day. From this point on, we start to see an increasing number of high-profile live servers.
I'd be curious to see if somebody revives this game and the servers for this one. Etho said one of the devs from Anthem made a YouTube channel and talked about something that happened behind the scenes. They actually wanted to make a single player game, but the person, that creator or idea dude, knew EA would never greenlight, so on the spot he presented Anthem. Oh yeah, because that was during the time or so that EA was super greedy or so, and they said specifically that single players are dead and everything. Yeah, I remember that, and they only cared about live service games. Like they were the company or so that was the most hated almost every single year. I remember that.
Looter shooters be released gained little to no traction before subsequently being shut down. Marvel's Avengers was released in 2020 before all development for it was pulled in March of 2023 and delisted from storefronts in September of 2023. Outriders was released in 2021, and active updates and new content for the game seemingly stopped around 2022 to 2023 following the release of the World Slayer DLC. I will say there seems to be a fair few people who still enjoy playing the game just from the limited research I did on it. Plus, Outriders' whole thing was that it wasn't trying trying to be a live service shooter, so take that for what you will. Either way, it clearly did not have the success it set out to. In 2022, Square Enix put out Babylon's Fall.
Oh, dude, Babylon Falls, man. Babylon Falls was a game. I completely forgot about this game. Oh my god, dude. This was the biggest flop for it was Platinum that made this game, right? By Square Enix. Square Enix also published it, right?
That wasn't exactly a shooter, but more of a looter slasher focused on melee combat. This historically flopped, dropping down to just one player on Steam only 2 months after.
There was only one person in the world playing Babylon Falls on PC earlier this week in May 7th of 2022? That's crazy. I wish I would have seen those numbers, dude. I would have loved to see that one person who was playing Babylon Fall on PC.
Its initial release, with its servers officially shutting down in 2023. Lastly, we have Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which released in January 2024, and I'm assuming you can see the trend now. This did not do very well. This got only 1 year of support till January 2025, which was the last release content update for the game. However, it is still playable, and it even now has an offline mode, so if the servers ever were to get shut down, which they inevitably will, it would still be accessible for those who own it. Although there is an absolute graveyard.
You can play this shit offline or so? Well, at least it's not that bad, at least, to be honest. You can play it offline.
Of looter shooter failures for the past 6 or so years, that doesn't mean great games haven't come out as well. One that jumps to mind for me is Risk of Rain 2, a roguelike looter shooter that was released in 2020 and is still getting updates today, with the most recent being in November of 2025. Taking a step back, we can see a clear line of demarcation from Destiny's release in 2014, where looter shooters were being turned into live service titles. Like I said before, Outriders wasn't meant to be a live service, so I'll exclude it from this list. But Borderlands is really the only one that truly never deviated from its initial release model, with many games following in Destiny's footsteps in terms of releasing new.
Yeah, but Borderlands is not doing really that great, to be honest. Gotham Knights were developed with looter shooter in mind, but they scrapped that with still looter shooter stains on them, thus it's dead. Oh yeah, I forgot about Gotham Knights.
Content and updating their games. I mean, we see this kind of thing happen all the time. How many battle royales were being pumped out a few years ago after Fortnite exploded? Or just look at the amount of hero shooters and extraction shooters coming out right now. Chasing a trend is nothing new, hence why it's referred to as a trend. But it is surprising, at least to me, that many studios have just given up on the idea of looter shooters. And we actually have.
I personally don't want to be a trend chaser. I want to be able to make games that, you know, number one, that I would enjoy playing, and then what you guys would enjoy playing as well. So, you know. Oh wait, are they going to talk about, is he going to talk about what's that one looter game or so that was on the PlayStation? Godfall. I remember about that game.
Have a literal example of this happening, and it wasn't that long ago either. Arc Raiders was initially revealed at the Game Awards in 2021. It was being developed as a free-to-play third-person looter shooter. However, after some delays, the team shifted away from a PvE looter to the PvPvE extraction shooter that it is today. Now keep in mind, at the time and still to this day, many people were not happy with this change. And while clearly Arc Raiders has gone on to have immense levels of success, there will always be a part of me that wishes we got to see the alternative. Embark has gone on to say that the main reason for the genre shift was that the game they were making originally just wasn't fun enough, and that when they added PvP, they started enjoying internal playtests much more. And I get it, and clearly they made a good move, but I'll always wonder what a looter shooter in this universe could have been like. So why aren't more studios trying to make looter shooters in the same vein as, let's say, Destiny? Well, firstly, I think it's really easy to look at all the flops and,
well, to be honest, they have the
like that as
they have the mentality of what is it? They have that specific mentality of like, how much money can we squeeze out of the player base? You know, they don't really have the mentality of like making the game fun. I feel like making the game is like the last priority. They want to be like, how do we get people invested in our game? How are we going to get people, you know, spending money in our, how do we get this, you know, what kind of cosmetics should, how much should we price it? You know, it's going to be free to play. All right, so we start charging the DLC, or should we not charge the DLC? You know, you kind of see where it kind of goes from that game. Godfall was something. Godfall was a game. All right, I'm going to be honest with you. That was an actual thing.
the reason for not wanting to jump into the market. But on the contrary, I feel like it serves as a great template of what to do and
what
not to do. Destiny's saving grace for years now, even in these extreme low points for the franchise, has been its gunplay and raid scenarios. Destiny 2 would have died a long time ago if the game wasn't fun to play and there wasn't an endgame goal to work towards. A major reason for its decline currently, since the future is so uncertain. Even a game like Borderlands that's had overall success as a franchise always runs into the same problem of lacking an endgame, something that plagued
one, Destiny was close to falling off. The amount of times they had their back against the wall, we assumed that Destiny was always making bread. Oh, the original Destiny? Yeah, because like if I remember correctly, the first 2 DLCs for Destiny was there was a controversy or so that those were actually technically originally part of the game, but they got rid of it out of the game and then turned it into DLC instead. That was like the rumor, like that was kind of like the rumor that was passing around. I don't know if it was proven or anything like that. I never looked into it during that time or so, during that time frame or so, but I was hearing or so a lot in general that those 2 specific DLCs, what is it, the House of Wolves and I forget what the other one was, to be honest.
Anthem's release as well. The Division introduced a Dark Zone, which added an immense amount of tension to the genre. And speaking of the Dark Zone, it's actually a really good segue to the next point I want to bring up. To me at least, it seems like the traditional looter shooters like Destiny or the Division are slowly being aged out and replaced by extraction shooters. Now, just hear me out. While Arc Raiders is the most obvious example, especially considering it started as a looter shooter, I think this trend will slowly continue in the years to follow its release. After all, it is kinda like the Fortnite of extraction shooters. Like it or not, it brought the genre mainstream. The PvE elements in Arc Raiders are very unique for an extraction setting, requiring players most of the time to team up to take on bigger boss level Arc like the Matriarch or the Queen. And it seems pretty clear that a part of Embark still wants Arc to be a PvE game first, so much so that the CEO even said engaging in PvP is against the ethos of Arc Raiders and that PvP was mainly used to create tension. Now, I'm not really sure how you're supposed to have tension when everyone is scared to mess up their matchmaking by shooting, so no one shoots, but that's not relevant for this video. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the days of looter shooters like Destiny or the Division are most likely long gone, which is pretty sad in my opinion. For all the flaws these games have, I can easily say they've also produced some of my most fond memories playing games with friends. Now, I'm not trying to be a downer, and like I said earlier,
well, it's because the problem it's because the problem is they just don't have the same mentality as they did in the past from their first game, you know, as in like, you know, how can we make it fun? You know, what makes a looter shooter, you know, what makes a looter shooter fun? What makes playing with your friends fun? I think it's just mostly now monetization and money wise, and everything else is just a second thought after.
Know the Division 3 is in the works. We also know that some other games are being developed as looter shooters, like The Cube, for example. This is being developed by Mundfish, the Atomic Heart guys, and is apparently taking inspiration from games like Destiny 2 and Warframe. But we know absolutely nothing about the game, and who knows if this will end up like Destiny or not. I would love to see more studios.
I thought this was wasn't this an extraction shooter? I thought this was an extraction shooter. Didn't they say this was an extraction shooter? Wait a minute, White Crimson Desert is a 6 and this marathon that I never heard of is a 9? Oh, don't ask me, ask you know, IGN. Those are creative at least, some of them, but Corpus wants to let, yeah, that's the problem, is because they have, you know, they have the most money or so. They get, the problem is like they're the investment and they get to say whatever the fuck they want to say and what they want to put in the game. Because they're the ones that are providing the money at the end of the day, so. I'm like, you can't really like, you know, I'm like, what you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Make looter shooters, but I think the most important reason of them all as to why we don't see more is that they are really fucking expensive to make. Keep in mind these are all estimates, but Destiny 2 probably cost somewhere around $500 million to develop. Just think about the sheer scope of the game and needing to plan out years of content while also regularly updating the game to make sure it doesn't break, which Destiny 2 always has and probably always will break. I just don't,
because probably the coding is like literally spaghetti code over there. Like literally, honestly, if Destiny 2 keeps breaking a lot or so, it's probably because the coding is spaghetti over there. But also at the same time, the only reason why is because one of my friend developers said specifically, like when you start adding something, when it comes to DLC or like anything of that sort of nature of like an expansion or something like that, the problem is like you're adding in like you're adding in like new coding, which unfortunately will conflict and break the older coding in the base game, and then you have to go back to refine those specific codings. But if some time has passed and the people who worked on the game at base, of course, who did that, are not there anymore, then the new people have to do that and have to find the issue with it, compared to if you still have the same developer who was there since the beginning and also working on the DLC, then they can easily go find specifically the coding or so for that. And that's the only reason why it takes longer for certain patches and certain things to come out at the end of the day, you know. But that's kind of basically because the problem is because they have so many cooks, in the kitchen or so, right? Because uh these game development freaking god, words, Jesus, these developers, there's so many of them or so. The problem is like only certain ones will understand certain specific parts of what they worked on in the game in general, so that's why.
I don't think looter shooters have enough of a draw anymore for studios to look at the immense cost of development and decide that it's a smart financial idea. But that's pretty much it for me. I've been thinking about this topic for a while and just really wanted to talk about it. If it somehow wasn't clear already, I obviously know nothing. I'm just a random guy sharing some of my thoughts on the state of looter shooters, so if you enjoyed, subscribe.
D2 had to remove the paid content because of that engine. That's why I will always be against having Marathon be a game mode in Destiny 2. Do y'all really want an extraction mode with the dusty ass engine? Hey man, that's their fault for not taking. Well, you want to know something? I bet you the people who actually made that engine specifically are probably no longer there. If I have to take a suspicious feeling, maybe the people who made the engine are just not there anymore, and then they have new people there, but they have no idea of what to do with the engine because they don't know how the coding works on that. Maybe the coding is a little bit weird for them in general. Maybe it could be. I'm just kind of coming up with like different theories in general for that shit of why the reason why their codes are becoming like spaghetti codes, basically.
Like all that stuff. And real quick, just want to say I've been streaming over on Twitch and this YouTube channel, so if you want to come hang out, link to that will be in the description. Going to be playing Crimson Desert probably all night on the 19th when it releases, so come check that out if you're interested. But I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
The new people who are there, they don't know how the codes, don't know how the old codes are working. Yeah, most likely, even Fortnite, they have the same problem where the brainchild is gone. That's what I'm thinking or so. I think it's because we all know that, like, you know, you have people who leave the development kind of like abruptly, or say like, oh, this person stepped down, or, you know, or this happened, or this person, you know, decided to quit or whatever, you know. My question is like, you know, the problem is like conflicting ideologies for that to happen. So my curiosity is if they are well, those old people can't show the new people how it works, and the new people are kind of like stuck there and are kind of like, they kind of like have to solve and guess, like, you know, what are we doing here, you know. Leagues have biggest spaghetti code. That's what I'm thinking. So great video, to be honest. What happened to looter shooters? Well, unfortunately, the way how they think about looter shooters, they don't think about it as in a fun aspect. They think of it as monetization and how much we can squeeze money out of the player base, you know. And it's kind of like basically it to basically set aside or so, you know, of the cost that they have to, you know, that they paid for the game. Maybe one day we'll get a looter shooter that'll actually be, you know, fun, instead of it being mostly focused on like monetization wise, as in like, you know, how much can we squeeze out of you. Maybe one day we'll get something like that. But for now, for the meantime, I don't think it'll be anytime soon, but hopefully maybe there'll be one developer out there that'll literally make a looter shooter and make it for fun instead of, you know, whatever, you know. When that happens, at least it'll be a good game at least, so, but we'll see what happens in the future.